So, in the game, Naiditsch played e6. Now, one nice thing about playing knight f3 is you're generally going to get more positions which are non-theoretical from a very early stage of the game. That is, a position where your opponent isn't that versed. And I have a feeling Naiditsch, at some point here, is starting just to make it up as he goes along. And that's just a beautiful thing about playing knight f3. It's less theoretical than the e4 or d4. Also, it would be nice if knight f3 was a viable move, simply for the reason that then we'd have 3 opening moves in chess which were viable instead of just 2. Kramnik castles, again waiting to take the pawn on d4. Naiditsch now takes, and Kramnik recaptures. And I think black is still fundamentally okay here. Probably his best way to deal with things now would be to play, say, bishop e7, queen takes e4, where white might hold a small advantage. But he plays a move that really does not look right here. He plays knight d5. And as far as I can tell, this is the only major mistake that Naiditsch makes during this game. And one of the reasons I picked this game was that it reminded me of the Kramnik of the 90s, where he would play knight f3, get maybe some kind of non-theoretical position with maybe a small edge, and his opponent would make some move that was kind of unharmonious, and then just convincingly beat him. Make a strong opponent like Naiditsch, who won Dortmund, just blow him off the board like it was no problem at all. So let's look at how Kramnik does this. Queen a4, knight d7, queen takes pawn. Simple chess. Knight b6, queen b3. And I think white just holds a small advantage here. Black would like to play bishop c5, but at the moment it doesn't work out too well, just so we can check and force this knight back. And say after a move like rook d1, we hold a good advantage simply because the bishop on c8 isn't active. So instead, Naiditsch makes a reasonable move, bishop d7. And now, very simple chess, knight c3. Pressuring the knight on d5 and trying to open the scope for this beautiful bishop on g2. Now, the first question would be, what if knight takes knight? And I think your Kramnik really has 2 options here. He could try queen takes knight and get hit with rook c8 and just move away with continuing pressure upon b7. Or he could play the more interesting pawn takes, where he accepts a weak pawn, but still holds an advantage due to his better centralized knight, the bishop on g2, better development. Still, that might have been the best choice for Arkadi. As it was, he played bishop c5, knight takes knight, knight takes, and now a very nice shot, knight f5. Very nice move. Let's look at what the point is. Now, clearly, if he takes the knight on f5, the knight on d5 will fall, and black's position will fall apart. So the only reasonable looking move is castles, and now we have the point. Knight takes g7. A very nice shot. And now black is probably lost. And when we look back on things, really the only mistake would have been this move 7 knight d5 by black. The point is, if king takes knight, we'd simply play bishop takes, pawn takes, queen c3 with a winning position. The black king is too exposed, and he's down a pawn. So he played back, knight f6, bishop h6, protecting the knight, queen e7, queen f3. The white queen would simply like to come to f4 and either to g5 or to h4, moving towards the black king. And there's not a lot that black can do to stop it. Bishop c6, queen f4. Now the first problem for black here is he can't play bishop takes g2. His knight f5, hitting both the queen and introducing the threat of queen g5 to g7 mate. So, after queen f4, black has to play king h8. And now Kramnik simply takes, rook c1, bishop d6, queen h4, introducing ideas like bishop g5, knight h5. Black has to do something. So he goes back, queen takes queen, bishop takes, knight takes pawn. And now he has the choice. He has to decide which of the minor pieces he wants to take. But in reality, it doesn't really make too much of a difference, because we're going to get a situation with a rook for 2 minors and a bunch of pawns. White will actually be up 3 pawns, and we'll see that position in a second. Notice that the rook can't move away because of this knight's mate, bishop e7. So he's got to take one of these pieces. Arkadi takes the bishop. And here we have a position where I think Naiditsch is just lost. Notice that one thing I discussed in my lecture on 2 minors versus a rook was that the rook gained in power the more pieces we trade off. And this position is a pretty good example of it, because the bishop and knight, black's bishop and knight, won't be able to coordinate themselves against the white rooks and pawns. The pawns, we'll see, will block any activity of the black pieces. Let's look at how the game ends. Rook d8, rook over, simple chess. King g7, guard the 7th. Now the pawn move takes away the d4 square. It's hard to give any advice to black here. a5, simple chess, put the rook behind the pawn. Rook d5, little tactics, rook c7. So, simple chess again. We're going to threaten to play rook a7 and collapse everything on the 7th rank. So black plays knight b5. We attack the knight. And after he goes to d6, we simply play rook d7, and we'll be introducing threats like e5. And in this position, Naiditsch simply resigned. There's really no easy way out of this business for him. Let's take a look at what might have happened. King f6, f4 is strong, king e6, and now the rook can move anywhere. b7, a7, and there's really no way now for black to break this pin. Before, the knight was pinned along the d file, but now it's pinned along the 6th rank, and it's just simply very unpleasant. Looks like the only way to deal with things would be to play f6. But then, if nothing else, we can just take this pawn on h7. The pawn on a5 will fall soon. Completely lost position, where the rook is really just as strong as the 2 minors. So I enjoyed this game very much. Even as a chess fan, I enjoyed this game. It was really good to see Kramnik return to his old form. And many people think he has no chance in the upcoming match with Topalov, that all chess fans should keep their fingers crossed that it's actually going to happen. But I'm holding out hope that he can give Topalov a good game. Kramnik was one of the best players of the 90s, one of the greatest chess talents ever, and if he can come through whatever chess problems he had, whether they were psychological, health-wise, and put on a great show for us chess fans, that's something I'd be very happy about. So this is International Master Jesse Kraai, hoping you've enjoyed today's game. Bye.